Hello everyone, thank you for joining us in this edition of The Inside. I am Bibi Jonathan. In this edition of the program, we are looking at the benefits of the visit of Pope Leo XIV to the Republic of Cameroon. We are looking at the impact of the visit of the global pastor, the head of the Roman Catholic Church and the head of the Vatican City State. We are looking at what should be done now, what should be happening in Cameroon with regards to the multiple socio-economic, political and security problems affecting the country, which the Pope raised in his messages to the people in Yaoundé, in Bamenda, in Douala. Now, let me take you through some of the highlights of what the Pope said in the different messages that he delivered during his stay in the Republic of Cameroon, addressing authorities, representatives of civil society and members of the diplomatic corps at the presidential palace in Yaoundé shortly after he arrived in Cameroon. Pope Leo XIV delivered an appeal for peace, justice, and renewed commitment to the common good, urging Cameroonians to draw on their rich diversity as a source of unity and strength. Speaking at the start of the apostolic journey to Cameroon, the Pope expressed gratitude for the warm welcome he received, describing Cameroon as Africa in miniature for its cultural and natural richness. The variety is not weakness, but a treasure, he said, noting that it represents a promise of fraternity and solid foundation for building lasting peace. And presenting himself as a shepherd and a servant of dialogue, fraternity, and peace, Pope Leo XIV said his visit is intended as a sign of closeness to all Cameroonians and an encouragement to persevere in building the common good. He acknowledged the global climate of discouragement, observing that hopelessness is rampant and that many feel powerless in the face of urgent challenges. Yet, he insisted, there remains a hunger and thirst for justice, for courageous choices, and for peace, particularly among young people, whom he called to take an active role in shaping a more just society. And the Pope also reaffirmed the Holy See's commitment to strengthening its collaboration with Cameroon, grounded in respect for human dignity and religious freedom. Recalling the legacy of his predecessors, he pointed to the enduring relevance of their calls for hope, reconciliation, and responsible governance. Such service, he explained, requires dedication to the common good, including minorities, and to promoting harmony within the society. And now turning to the challenges facing the country, Pope Leo XIV spoke candidly about the violence affecting regions such as the Northwest, Southwest, and Far North, noting the profound suffering caused by the conflicts, lives lost, families displaced, and young people deprived of hope. Behind the numbers are the faces and stories and shattered hopes of real people. He went further, renewing an appeal he made earlier this year. The Pope urged the rejection of the logic of violence and war in favor of a peace founded on love and justice. He described true peace as unarmed and disarming, capable of opening hearts and fostering trust. The world is thirsting for peace. Enough of war, he insisted, stressing that peace must never be reduced to empty rhetoric, but embodied in daily life and institutional practice. A wave of renewed scrutiny has fallen on the government's handling of Cameroon's protracted Anglophone crisis following remarks by Pope Leo XIV, who condemned the human and moral cost of conflicts sustained by heavy military spending. Speaking after hearing harrowing testimonies from victims in the Northwest and Southwest regions, the pontiff questioned the priorities of leaders who continue to channel vast resources into warfare rather than peace building, adding a fresh international voice to ongoing debates about the government strategy in the crisis-stricken regions. And he was speaking after having listened to harrowing testimonies of killings, destruction, notably at the St. Joseph's Cathedral in the Northwest Regional Capital, Bamenda, and on a private visit to St. Paul Catholic Hospital, Nilong, in the city of Douala. Pope Leo XIV's presence went beyond praise and worship to God and fellowship with people afflicted with sickness to trigger a demand for peace. We want peace. We want peace. We want peace. We heard a lot of people chanting this request for peace during the Pope's visit. Now, at the 101 Air Force Base in the country's political capital, before thousands of faithful, Pope Leo XIV delivered what many are calling his most direct message, yet a moral appeal to break the chains of corruption. He urged Cameroonians to make a bold leap in conscience. He warned that corruption disfigures authority and threatens lasting peace. Addressing the challenges of the digital age, the Pope turned his attention to ethics in technology. He asks that artificial intelligence serves humanity, not replace it, and cautioned young people against what he called bubbles of easy consensus created by algorithms. He also reminded the world that the race for digital minerals must not destroy Cameroon's forest. Before departing from the Yaoundé Simale International Airport, the Pope made a heartfelt plea for peace in Cameroon's crisis-stricken regions, calling for the silencing of weapons and urging all to become living letters of the gospel through charity and service. Those are some of the issues that the Pope raised during his visit, and we are looking at the impact of these messages that the Pope has given to Cameroonians. What should be happening now in the country? Stay with us and meet our guest in some few seconds. Our guest today is Bishop Michael Bibi. He is the Bishop of the Buea Diocese of the Roman Catholic Church. Your Lordship, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Babila.
Let me first of all have your impressions about the 4 days that Pope Leo XIV spent here with us in Cameroon. You were with him all along.
Thank you very much. I have very positive impressions as far as the visit of His Holiness, Pope Leo XIV, to Cameroon is concerned. Of course, as you rightly mentioned, I happen to have been in all the places that he visited, and he arrived in Yaoundé on the 15th in the afternoon. We were there to welcome him, and after that, of course, we went to the presidency, where he had to be welcomed by the head of state, and of course he too gave his own address, and after that there was a private meeting with the bishops of Cameroon at the National Episcopal Conference, and the next day of course we're in Bamenda for the celebration, the audience at the St. Joseph's Metropolitan Cathedral. And after that, we went back to Yaoundé, and on the 17th, we're in Douala, where he also celebrated Mass and also visited the sick. And after that, we went back to Yaoundé. I went to the Catholic University of Central Africa, where he also addressed the students of the university, and also met with some superiors of religious congregations. And of course, the closing Mass that was on Friday the 18th at the military base there in Yaoundé. Personally, I think that from what I observed, from my discussions with other bishops, and also those who happen to have been there, and from the comments I got from what some people sent out in social media, I think that the visit was very good. It was successful. It was good to have the Holy Father visit our nation, And we can say, thank you, God, for making this to happen.
I ask for impressions because you must have heard some Cameroonians saying that it was just a visit, like any other visit that has come and gone. And then we are left back with all the troubles.
Yes, I mean, I don't think it was just a visit. I don't think it was just a visit. The Holy Father, first of all, as...
it was not an ordinary visit?
It was not as I mentioned, it was not just an ordinary visit. The Holy Father decided to visit 4 African nations. And if he decided to visit those 4 African nations, Algeria, Cameroon, Angola, and Equatorial Guinea, I don't think that it was just ordinary. Any papal visit is not just ordinary, because the Pope in the first place is going to any nation in order to get closer to the people of that nation. He wants to be one with them. Of course, he's going to that nation in order to encourage people as far as their faith is concerned. And his visit actually doesn't concern only those who are Catholic Christians. He is coming to see everybody in that nation. And if you could follow from all what happened and the various interventions that the Holy Father made, I think that it was not just an ordinary visit, but it was a visit for the Holy Father to let us in Cameroon know how close he wants to be with us, and that he also feels some of the challenges and the difficulties that we may be going through. And he was coming again to reawaken our zeal, to let us know that we can come out of some of the challenges that we are facing, and to give us that renewed enthusiasm, not to give up hope, but to make sure that we continue to take concrete measures that will be able to help us, will be able to help our nation and humanity as a whole to be improved and to be able to go ahead. So I will not just consider it an ordinary visit, because any apostolic visit is not just an ordinary visit. It's a visit that is meant to have a spiritual impact on the life of the people. It is a visit that is going to help people to be able to rethink their commitment to their nation. It is a visit that is supposed to assist people to be able to evaluate the way in which they have been journeying and ask themselves from what the Holy Father has said. We have also heard it said at different times by the bishops and other people in the nation. But coming now from the Holy Father, a spiritual leader, also makes us take it a bit more seriously. And that's why the Holy Father said the time to do that is now. It's not tomorrow. It's not in the future. So it's left for us Cameroonians to look at ourselves, look at our nation, look at the challenges that we are going through in our nation, and ask ourselves, the Holy Father has come, he has gone. Is that all? Is nothing going to happen? And I think that is the crux of the matter, which means that we must be able to look for ways and means in which we have to continue to digest the message that he brought and see how practically we can take decisions and resolutions that will make the message to have an impact in our life.
That is the very essence of this program. And I wanted to mention, as I said earlier in my introduction, that it came in double capacity, as a statesman, as the head of the Vatican City State, but more importantly, as a spiritual leader, coming in the name of God Almighty. What dimension, what's your reading of that dimension, that spiritual dimension of his coming?
As far as the spiritual dimension of the Holy Father's visit is concerned, it has been a moment of spiritual renewal. A spiritual renewal for the people of Cameroon. And as I mentioned, if you look at all those who came out at the different places where he visited, people people were touched differently. And talking with people and people sharing their experience, even the Catholic Christians who happened to have seen him for the very first time, some who had the opportunity to greet him, some were, everybody was fortunate to get a general blessing from him. I think it was a moment of spiritual renewal, because any apostolic visit is aimed at strengthening and deepening the faith of the Christian people. And even those who are not Christian, they also had lots of blessings as far as that visit was concerned, which also affected them as far as their spiritual lives were concerned. And me, taking myself for example, it was a privileged moment that I had the opportunity, again, to meet with him. I had the opportunity to meet with the Most Holy Father, and at the same time, to be able to listen to him again, give those reminders about certain things that can help as far as our spiritual lives is concerned, because all those virtues that he talks about, these are virtues that as Christians we're expected to live them out. And without those virtues, without making those virtues become a reality in our everyday life, it becomes very, very difficult for us.
All right, you were with him all along from Yaoundé to Bamenda to Douala. And I want to have your assessment of how he was received by the people. I'm not just talking about Catholic Christians, but I'm talking about Cameroonians, generally speaking. In the northwest and southwest regions, before his coming, there was a message from the pro-independence fighters that every activity was suspended. Every activity referring to the struggle for the independence of former British Southern Cameroons, the fighting and whatever, the violence, everything was suspended. What's your appraisal of how he was received by the people at the different in the different cities where he was, where he visited, and more particularly in Bamenda?
Yes, I think that his arrival in Yaoundé and eventually to Bamenda, to Douala and back in Yaoundé it was a great reception, because people came out in their numbers. Everybody didn't want that blessing not to reach him or her and the entire family. And you could see people on the streets, you could see people gather for the celebration of the Eucharist in Bamenda, the audience of the students in Yaoundé, the orphanage he visited, and the sick that he visited, and all the rest. I think that the visit was actually an occasion that brought joy to the lives of many people, and people were happy to have that opportunity to meet with him, to celebrate with him, and to get the blessings that he brought. And particularly in Bamenda, I was I was marveled. Bamenda is part of the ecclesiastical province of Bamenda. It's made up of Bamenda, Kumbu, Mamfe, Kumba, and Buea. So those of us in the ecclesiastical province of Bamenda, we were more focused on Bamenda, because that is our province. And I think headed by the Archbishop of Bamenda, His Grace Andrew Nkea, who is also the president of the National Episcopal Conference of Cameroon. We had series of meetings. We did lots of preparations to put things in place. And there was a local coordinator, Monsignor William Neba, and the other members in the different committees that were put in place, both at the national level and at the level of the ecclesiastical provinces, that actually did well in order to make sure that we had the celebrations and had them properly. And I want to say that for the Holy Father, I was a young boy in 1985 when the Holy Father visited Cameroon for the first time, Pope St. John Paul II. I was in Form 2, and I was one of the altar boys who served during that Mass. The Holy Father, of course, came to the airport, was welcomed there, celebrated Mass with us, and left. What makes it different this time is that the Holy Father comes and doesn't remain at the airport.
And the Mass servant The little boy is now
the master is now the bishop. The master is now a bishop. I was an altar boy in August 1985. And the Holy Father comes this time, and it doesn't end in the airport. You needed to have been there to see the population. I mean, when he arrived, the population that was there already on the streets, right up to the cathedral. People came out in their numbers, and he had to go through the town of Bamenda, then went to St. Joseph's Metropolitan Cathedral, where he had the audience there, the people inside the cathedral, the ones who were outside the cathedral. I think for me, personally, it was it was a good welcome in the different areas where he visited, and most especially in Bamenda. And as you rightly mentioned, our brothers and sisters were in the bushes. They had called for a ceasefire, which also means that they recognized him as their spiritual leader. Whether they are Catholics or not, they know that somebody who represents God is coming to the nation. And of course, I want to use the opportunity to appreciate them for sending out the message that they sent, because some Christians would have been afraid, how are we going to move, and not knowing, being uncertain whether they may have incidents on the road and all the rest. But the fact that they sent that message was reassuring to the population that there will be no disturbances. And I think from that point of view, I appreciate what they did. And calling that ceasefire for those period of days means that it is possible that they can call for a longer period. If they can call for a longer period, and that is where the now comes in. What can we do for this ceasefire to be continuous so that we can have a proper dialogue, we can have proper discussions, and get the ways in which we can come out of this situation?
Archbishop Andrew Nkia qualified the message of the pro-independence fighters as a miracle. He indicated that for once the armed separatists were not speaking the same language with the authorities, calling for calm and so on.
I agree fully with the Archbishop Andrew Nkia, what he said about that ceasefire and the fact that it was a miracle. And to be honest with you, most of us, the bishops, we go to some of these very difficult areas during our pastoral visits. And sometimes when you go to the difficult areas during the pastoral visits, you meet these boys on the road. And sometimes they hold you on the road and you talk with them, you try to find out from them, what we are going through, what do you think, what can be done? Of course, I always tell you, let us go back to the root causes of this problem. It is you people meet the government, people you meet the president. Tell the president we have suffered for a long time. The solution should be looked into as far as these problems are concerned. Tell the president that our leaders who are locked up in Yaoundé should be freed. Tell the president that the area should be demilitarized. Tell the president that we are ready for a dialogue in order to resolve this issue that we are going through and all the rest. So if you meet them on the road, especially when we go out for pastoral visit, you listen to them and what they say. You also say that they want to get a solution as far as this problem is concerned, just as the Cameroon government too wants this crisis to come to an end, because we cannot govern a country and govern it well when parts of the country are in conflict and citizens are suffering every now and then. The Amber Boys are killing the military is killing the Amber Boys. The Amber Boys and the military are destroying properties of people, and at the same time we are talking that we want peace. Yes, we want peace. Peace is important. We have had a national dialogue in this country. I think there is a possibility that something more can be done. And I want to challenge all of us. I'm in authority myself in the church. As far as the Diocese of Buea is concerned, we're organizing a diocesan synod in June that we have to discuss about our diocese. And one of the things that we're also going to be talking about will be stemming from what the Holy Father has said at our local level, what can we do in the Diocese of Buea? Eventually, as a province, we'll be thinking, what can we do as a province in the northwest and the southwest region that constitutes the ecclesiastical province of Bamenda? What can we do? We will need to reflect. The church leaders will need to come together with some members of the civil society. Will it be good for us to form some committees to see how we can look at the various things that the Holy Father spoke about and see how we can mediate between the government, between the separatists, and see whether we can have a middle course.
And so that we can have more of such miracles coming from both directions.
Sure.
Not only from the separatists, but also from the side of the government.
Excellent.
That is also expected to take some actions, like you said, indicating the request of the people who are angry and carrying guns to fight for one reason or the other. Now, I want us to go into some of the things that the Pope highlighted specifically. But before we do that, I want us to go to the newsstands now and look at what the newspapers reported this week. This is the press review. Cameroon Tribune and The Sun report the success story of the visit of Pope Leo XIV to Cameroon, a visit which, according to the advocate, has been qualified as fantastic by the Pope. And in the same vein, the media says Pope Leo XIV in Cameroon, Vatican lauded stunning turnout at pontifical masses. In the meantime, Nous puts forth the question: is the Pope's visit actually a blessing to Cameroon? According to breaking news, Pope Leo XIV left an indelible mark on Cameroon, and the paper now raises the question, after speaking truth to power, what next? The Herald Tribune reports that the Pope delivered a message of peace, unity and justice. The Municipal Update looks at what the Pope's peace call means for Cameroon, the horizon after Pope Leo XIV's historic visit. Shall we make Omar? The paper goes further to tell its readers that the sovereign pontiff opened the door for peace and dialogue, but do those in power have the intention of walking through it? Ekine Agbo Ibai tells the horizon that the visit of the Pope succeeded in optics but failed woefully in substance, while Barrister Leongo Walterson says the responsibility rests not with the visitor but with the nation. Daily Voice takes its readers through what it qualifies as 90 days in hell. The story of Henry Kum, Chief of Center of the Disarmament, Demobilization and Reintegration Commission in Bamenda, who survived captivity by armed men. Daily Voice exclaims, "Womb bleeds again, widow tears up for justice." The paper reports that in Agam, a predominantly farming and grazing community in the northwest region of Cameroon, the boundary between a farmer's livelihood and a grazer's ambition is no longer marked by fences but by blood, as a widow laments over the killing of her husband in a farmer-grazier conflict. You're welcome back. We're still with our guest, Bishop Michael Bibi, the Bishop of Buea Diocese of the Roman Catholic Church. Your Lordship, we're talking about the conflict in the northwest and southwest regions. This appeared in the Pope's message from the first day he arrived in Yaoundé. He spoke about it in his encounter with representatives of civil society, religious leaders, and government authorities, where he was speaking after the President of the Republic had spoken. And he said some things about the situation, notably making an appeal for peace and justice. That appeal for peace and justice, how far can it go to produce impact on the ground in terms of reversing this situation to a normal situation?
Yes, the Holy Father made an appeal for peace, made an appeal for justice. And as I mentioned earlier, these are appeals that the Church has been making and also requesting that we should be able to have peace, we should be able to have justice. And these are virtues that are very central as far as Christian living is concerned, and virtues that are necessary as far as the society is concerned. It is important for us to know that as far as peace is concerned, that is what every human person desires. And Jesus Christ himself is a Prince of Peace. And if you look at we are now within the Easter period, most of the post-resurrection appearances of Jesus, when he appeared to his apostles or disciples, the first message he gave them was, peace be with you. The Holy Father, from beginning to the end of his visit in Cameroon, has been talking about peace, and particularly the internal peace, especially what is happening in the northwest and southwest regions. And we have said peace is a treasure. It's what all of us we treasure. And we know, of course, that for us to have peace, there must be justice. And justice means giving to each person what is his or her due. And when people don't have what is their due, they want to ask it. They want to fight for it. But if we try to make sure that in our community, in our society, that we try to practice justice, I think that will go a long way to bring peace in our midst. And at the same time, we cannot practice justice if we are not truthful. To be just means we must be ready to speak the truth. And if we are ready and committed to speak the truth, especially as far as the reality of this situation is concerned, it is going to help us to have peace. And we cannot also speak the truth if we don't have people who are ready to stand up for the truth and to tell us about the truth, so that we should be able to have lasting peace. Peace is not decreed. Peace is supposed to be something that we live it every day. And I think that it is something that is cherished in our midst, and that is why the Holy Father could talk about it from beginning to the end of his visit. And that symbolic gesture that he did at the St. Joseph's Metropolitan Cathedral with other religious leaders by sending out the doves, the 7 doves, as symbol of peace, I think all of us Cameroonians who must be ready to see how concretely, we don't need to only talk about peace verbally. What can we do in the situation in which we find ourselves? Be it in our families, be it in our small Christian communities, our mission stations, the different parishes, the deaneries, the dioceses, our society as a whole. We want peace. We desire peace. We need to have this peace. And to have this peace, we must endeavor to be just towards one another. And at the same time, we must endeavor to speak the truth. And when we speak the truth, then there is no doubt that we will be able to have peace, and lasting peace that comes from the heart, the peace that is going to make everybody to be able to live like brothers and sisters.
The Pope made it very clear that peace should not be a mere rhetoric. It shouldn't be a slogan. It should be something that is practiced at individual and at institutional levels. And this reminder from the Pope points to the idea that Cameroonians, or the opinion suggesting that Cameroonians, from the authorities to the man on the street, have been doing more of talking peace, but not doing peace, talking peace and doing the opposite of peace.
I think that is very important, because it is not just words that we want. Peace, as the Holy Father said, should not just be a slogan that we can voice out, but we need to carry out concrete actions that will be able to bring peace in our midst. And if we talk about peace and we act contrary to peace, it is obvious that there's going to be no peace. There's going to be no peace. If we talk about peace and at the same time we are unjust to each other, If we talk about peace and we cannot practice justice, then the peace is going to be something in the mind. At the same time, we talk about peace, we talk about justice, and we cannot speak the truth. We live in lies telling, and all the rest. That is not going to help us as far as our situation is concerned. And that is why it is important that we all desire peace. The peace that Jesus himself brought, the Prince of Peace. And desiring this peace challenges each and every one of us as individuals and as institutions that we must stand for justice, because injustice can never give us peace. It means that we must stand for truthfulness, because lies telling will never bring us peace. And that is why all of us, we need to stand for the truth and make sure we speak the truth and see how we can work together. As I say, it's not just a matter of the church, it's not a matter of the Cameroon government, it's a matter of each individual. Wherever you find yourself, wherever you are working, in your family, what can you do to make sure that there is peace? And I think that if we work together as individuals, as institutions, and we have these values cherished in our hearts, and we know that it should not just be lip services, but that we try concretely to say, what can I do? As Michael Bibi, as the Bishop of the Diocese of Buea, with the present situation that we are living in the Diocese of Buea, what can I do as an individual? What can the church in Buea Diocese as an institution, what can we do in order to see that we translate the words of peace that we talk every day about into concrete actions that will be able to help us resolve the challenges that we find ourselves.
Just to be a little more precise about what you said concerning talking peace and doing the opposite of peace. Many Cameroonians are really concerned about this, because they have a lot of people coming to them in different capacities, talking about peace, preaching peace, but embezzling state money, corruption, practicing discrimination, practicing nepotism, practicing all kinds of ills that go a long way to negatively, adversely impact the lives of Cameroonians and the nation.
What you are saying is very, very true. And that is why we say there can be no peace without justice. And if we are Cameroonians, the Holy Father mentioned the fact that we must have concern for the common good. If you have concern for the common good means that whatever resources that we have that is supposed to benefit the human person, to benefit Cameroonians, that those resources to be put for the good of everybody. But if you have a situation in which, because of tribal issues, people are not just, they want to favor people coming from their particular tribe, if you have a situation in which people embezzle what is meant for the common good, if you have a situation in which people are corrupt and corruption is in every fabric of our society, if you have a situation like that, how do we expect peace to come? Because if we are having difficulties and worries now, it is because of all these negative things. And for us to have that true and lasting peace, we should be able to look at the way we relate with one another. Am I treating the other person as a human being? The human being created in the image and likeness of God, the dignity of the human being. That is what the Holy Father also mentioned very seriously, that we are all human beings created in the image and likeness of God with the same dignity. And if we have the same dignity, and there are things that are supposed to benefit all of us, and some few people, they take it out of their own selfish interests in order to enrich themselves, we can never have peace. And that is why it is a clarion call for all of us in the church, in the society, to make sure that whatever is supposed to benefit the human person, that we make sure that it benefits the human person. Because if there is something to be distributed and everything is distributed according to people's needs and abilities and all the rest, well, we have no reason for us to be fighting today. But if there are fightings and people are getting worried about this and that, it is because the resources are not equally distributed. And the Holy Father even mentioned even the European countries that relate with the African nations and under the context of helping them, but exploiting their resources and carrying it over. And that is why our young people cannot wait again in Cameroon. Everybody is looking for an opportunity to go out there. But most of the resources out there have been taken from us. Why can we not develop? And that is what the Holy Father said. Why can we not develop these industries here? Why can we not give employment to these young people here? And nobody will be interested to go outside there. They'll be able to use their gifts and talents back at home. There are many Cameroonians who are out there who are professionals in different fields of life, medical doctors, engineers. If we bring other talents back to this country is going to be a different reality. And that is why it is important for us to note that living and searching to have peace, we cannot do so if we have some of these negative attitudes of nepotism, tribalism, corruption, embezzlement, and lack of concern for the common good existing in our midst.
Speaking at the St. Joseph's Metropolitan Cathedral in Bamenda, after having listened to harrowing testimonies from victims of the conflict in the northwest and southwest regions, the Pope questioned the priorities of leaders who continue to channel vast resources into warfare rather than peace building, into military spending rather than peace building. The case of Cameroon, for example, for close to 10 years, there's been a lot of money that's been pumped into military action on the ground in an attempt to put an end to secessionist activities. Give us an understanding of this perspective of the Holy Father's message about military spending on military action instead of building peace.
Yes, if you look at the world, look at what is happening in the world today, the different nations that are involved in world, the nuclear weapons, here and there, the destruction of human life, the destruction of property and all the rest, you see that nations spend a lot of money in order to get equipment to fight war, to destroy human life, to destroy material goods of other people. And the case is not different in Cameroon. Because in Cameroon, too, a lot of money has been invested to get weapons. A lot of money has been invested in order to fight the separatists. And if all this energy, I should rightly say, the Cameroon government have made efforts in order to see to it that they try to resolve the crisis. But I think that these efforts can be doubled and make sure that rather than getting weapons and the rest in order to fight the separatists, these resources could be channeled in a proper way so that we can see how we can work more towards peace building. We have had peace talks, we have opportunity that we have come together with members of the civil society, members of the government, and as I say, there's no bishop in the ecclesiastical province of Bamenda that doesn't meet the Amazonian fighters when you are moving around for pastoral visits. Some places you go, you see them there, and they want to talk to you, you two talk with them. And it is interesting to note that they too are saying that they want the war to come to an end. But the question is, what concrete measures can we put in place in order to make sure that this war comes to an end? Because we are living in a situation, that is why I was talking about demilitarization, because you see, wherever the military is, the Amba fighters want to go and attack the military. And when they go there, they kill the military, they kill some of the militaries in some situation, and take their arms. Because maybe they don't have money to buy arms. They go and take human life is sacred. They have no right to kill a human person. And at the same time, of course, when the military lays hands on them too, they are also killed. The human life too is still sacred. And in some situation, like what happened recently in Ikata, one of my parishes here under Moyoka subdivision, these boys came and killed some military, and which was something bad, which was something unacceptable. And at the same time, when the military too came back to look for them, houses were burnt, some people were killed, and it makes the situation very, very difficult, because when the two big people are fighting, it is the poor people who are suffering.
Non-combatants.
Yes, non-combatants are the ones suffering. People, the military came, burned houses, people fled back to the bushes, and all the rest, and some were killed. So we are saying that...
And that goes further to complicate the peace process.
Yes, and that is why we are saying that it is something that all of us have to work towards it. We have to make an effort to see to it that we try to leave this fighting, because violence only begets violence. If the Amber boys did not kill the military officers, they wouldn't have come for revenge. They have come for revenge. The Amber boys have all gone to the bushes. They have met the innocent population that are trying to run. Their houses have been burnt. A community that I visited in February, it was all vibrant and all the rest. I went back there 2 months after the incident. I saw a community, the place all deserted. So violence only begets violence, and that is why we are calling on ourselves, the church leaders, and also calling on the powers that be, the civil society, the members of government, that we have had enough. And I think it's high time now that we ask ourselves, the Holy Father has come and gone, yes, but these messages that we have been talking about, and the Holy Father has come and insisted and stressed about it and said the time is now, not tomorrow, and not for the future. What are we Cameroonians going to do? Are we going to sit and fold our hands and continue to kill each other every day and destroy properties of others every day? No. We have to say, what decisions can we take in order to form committees at our local levels, in the ecclesiastical province of Bamenda, or in our different dioceses? We work together with all our brothers and sisters of the other religions and all the rest, with our traditional leaders, with our government authorities. What can we do in order to bring this mess to an end? Because the suffering is too much. I'm talking like someone who has been to the most challenging and difficult areas. When I was in Bamenda, I was ordained within this crisis. The crisis started in November 2016. I was made bishop in January 2017. I worked in Bamenda for 3 years under very difficult situations. And I've been in Buea now for 6 years. And the section in Moyoka subdivision there, which I decided to take like my own best area, because I wanted to get closer to the people, to know the people, and to try to work to see whether we can be able to have peace there. We are struggling, but things are not yet back to normal. And I think all of us must put our hands on deck to see that we work in order to make sure that we can be able to have lasting peace in the Northwest and the Southwest regions. And I call on all of us. It's a commitment that all of us must make. It's a time for conversion, for a change of heart. If we have not seen the gravity of this problem, if we have not seen the pains that families have gone through, because there are people who have lost parents, they have lost siblings, they have lost their property, we will not understand what is happening. And that is why it is important for us to be messengers of peace. Peace not only as a slogan, peace that does not come only from our lips, but peace that can be able to assist us concretely to take away the challenges that we are going through.
There are some suggestions that an inclusive dialogue should be organized, a dialogue that will bring every party on board, and a dialogue that will not have preconditions, a dialogue that will not bring everything in the same basket, but that will address specifically the problem of the conflict in the Northwest and Southwest regions, the Anglophone problem. A dialogue that will bring on the dialogue table, that will bring to the table those who are at the other extreme, demanding for outright independence. And even the leaders, Isiku, Ayuktabi, and the rest, who are in detention. And of course, that should come with general amnesty and an enabling environment that can bring together all these people on board to find a way out of this stalemate. What do you think about that?
I think that is the best thing that we need to do now. Because if we don't have everybody come on the table, if we don't listen to the voices of everybody and tackle this problem as a problem that is affecting two regions in this country with their specificity, then I think we are not going to get to where we are supposed to go. And I fully agree that it is high time that we're getting into the 10th year already. How long are we going to remain in this situation? Even those who are the extremists and all the rest, let us bring everybody to the table. Let us discuss the specific issues and problems. And when we discuss it, then we can be able to say, okay, where is the way forward? What can we do in order to make sure that we move forward? Of course, people have to let go certain opinions and all the rest, but we try to move in such a way that we are able to work for the common good of the people of the Northwest and the Southwest region, and at the same time for the entire Cameroon.
Now, Your Lordship, give us an understanding of the action taken by the Pope in Bamenda, releasing a dove into the air.
The Holy Father came in, and from the beginning of his visit, he had been talking about peace. The dove is a symbol of peace. And after all the discussions, since he was having a discussion about peace, the importance of peace, all of us should be able to work towards peace and not make peace to be only a slogan. That symbolic gesture was to send the dove out to the whole of the ecclesiastical province of Bamenda. Fly to Kumbu, fly to Bamenda, fly to Manfe, to Kumba and to Buea, and let the peace of Christ dwell in each and every one of us. And I think that action was very much appreciated. After all the discussions we had, something symbolic was done. And not by him alone. The other religious leaders were also involved in order to let us know that this whole aspect about peace is something that concerns us, and that we have to do everything in our powers to see to it that we maintain and have peace return back in the Northwest and the Southwest regions.
What about the idea that suggesting that releasing the dove in the air is a call for action? Releasing the dove in the air is a call for action, action that will generate the peace, because just releasing the dove alone and no action may not produce the miracle.
Fruit, yes. That aspect too is there. Releasing the dove too can also be attributed to a call to action, which is very correct. But I think essentially looking at the symbolism of the dove, because we are saying that peace is not supposed to be a slogan, it's not supposed to be decreed by somebody that you must have peace and you have the peace, but it's something that we have to put it into action in our daily lives. And that is why that symbolic gesture was to bring the peace of Christ that he has come and preached among us to the entire ecclesiastical province of Bamenda and beyond. And of course, a sign of us committing ourselves that we have to carry out that action to make sure that the peace that we all long for, the peace that we all desire, we can work in order to achieve it.
We are taking some interviews now, and we'll be right back in a moment. These are interviews of the week.
No one can adequately understand what we have gone through in Bamenda except you live in Bamenda. And therefore, people read things on social media, people hear stories, but those of us who live there, we are living permanently in trauma. And Bamenda, for about 8 years had been more or less abandoned. Our airport was not working, roads were broken, water was not flowing. But to get the Pope coming and all these things start happening again, is a very big thing for us. For 8 years, the airport of Bamenda has been closed. I flew in the Pope's plane to Bamenda. That's the first time I've flown in a plane to Bamenda. The airport has been closed for 8 years, so nobody was using the airport. Suddenly, the airport is open with sophisticated equipment, is functioning again. That is a miracle. If the Pope did not come, I can guarantee you it never have happened. Secondly, we have been dealing with very bad and broken roads. And suddenly, Bamenda roads start getting tarred. They are fixing up the roads, putting up street lights. This is a miracle. We have not seen this for 10 years. When the Pope comes to a place, it is an event. But really, that event is not as important as the aftermath of the event. And therefore, the Pope has come and gone. He has given speeches and messages. We have all clapped. We are all happy. What next? That question, what next, is very important for all of us. And I think that in the whole country, we have to sit down to digest that message, all those messages that the Pope brought. And secondly, we have to see what it takes to be able to implement some of the things that he said. I'll give you an example. In Bamenda, he was talking about a time for peace. It is now, not tomorrow. And you discover that we as Bamenda people have to start reflecting concretely on this message. If the time of peace is now, how do we make that now to happen? And so we have to really set up committees to study how to implement these words of the Pope and see how we can make this peace a reality. How do we dialogue with the separatists in the bush? And how do we get the separatists in the bush to be able to see how to dialogue with government? So these are things that we members of civil society and church, we have to do to be able to make sure that the words of the Pope don't get wasted.
I'm very privileged to see the Pope here in Douala. I'm an IDP from Bamenda. Yeah. I hope the Pope has come and things are going to change for the better of Cameroonian, Northwest, Southwest.
And it's a privilege for me to come here and with my family, with my children, to receive Pope Leo XIV. I'm blessed. I'm totally blessed. My family is blessed.
I finally saw the Pope, and it is a great peace the Pope brings in Cameroon. The head of state, Excellency Pope Buea, have a special idea, invited the Highness here in Cameroon to deliver message of peace, to gather all the population and magnify living together.
At the 101 Air Force Base in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, before thousands of faithful, Pope Leo XIV delivered what many are now calling his most direct message, a moral appeal to break the chains of corruption. He urged Cameroonians to make a bold leap of conscience. Your Lordship, give us an understanding of a bold leap of conscience after the Pope made an appeal for the chains of corruption to be broken in Cameroon. He said everyone, from the authorities to those who are down the ladder, are expected to make a bold leap of conscience. What's that?
All looking at society today, beginning even from little children growing up. Corruption is practiced in different ways. And sometimes before you go up the ladder and you reach where you are supposed to be as a senior officer or a church leader, you may find yourself at the same time in this state of corruption.
The virus has already grown.
The virus is growing. the virus is growing. In the church, there's corruption. And in the state, there's corruption. In the society, there's corruption. In our families, there's corruption. And that is why the Holy Father is talking about this whole aspect about conscience. And simply put, conscience is the voice of God in us that tells us what is good and is to be done, and what is evil that we should avoid. There are different types of consciences. You have the correct conscience, you have the incorrect conscience, you have the erroneous conscience, you have the lax conscience, you have the perplexed conscience, and all the rest. So, in the formation of conscience, the Holy Father is saying, in other words, that in the aspect of formation of our conscience, from the very beginning, and as we grow up the ladder, we should be able to have the correct conscience and avoid the other consciences that we may have picked along the line. And that is why we're talking about conscience being the voice of God in us, telling us what is good and to be done, and what is evil that is not supposed to be done. Somebody who has a correct conscience will see red and say that is red. Will see black and say that is black. But somebody with an incorrect conscience will see red and say it's blue, and see blue and say it's green. So we need to make that bold leap to get to the formation of a correct conscience, a conscience that will be able to say or speak the truth, a conscience that will be able to lead us to the truth, a conscience that will be able to tell us that what does not belong to you as an individual, what belongs to the community, that is meant for the common good, that is what we should do. And I think that demands a conversion, a complete change of heart, a complete renewal of our methods of doing things and our methods of thinking, to know that we must follow the dictates of our correct conscience. And if we have the other consciences that are not proper, we should be able to make a U-turn and follow our correct conscience, because conscience in this case is the key. And if you have a correct conscience and you hardly do something that is going to affect the common good. But if you do not have a correct conscience, then every other thing passes. And that's where we can talk about corruption. That we can talk about embezzlement. That we can talk about nepotism and tribalism and all the isms that are negative. So I think that it is a call that the Holy Father made to us Cameroonians, and all of us should take it to heart positively and have a self-evaluation in the different responsibilities that we have in the church, in the state, in the society. What can we do to act according to our conscience? What can we do to avoid forming consciences that will make us do things that are contrary to the will of God?
The Pope warned that corruption disfigures authority and threatens lasting peace.
Yes. If the authority is corrupt, it means that that authority cannot practice justice. If the authority is corrupt, it means that that authority cannot speak the truth. And if that happens, how can we have lasting peace? And that is why at the very beginning, we're talking and mentioned the fact that peace is important. Peace is a gift that is valued and is to be valued by all of us. But at the same time, there can be no peace without justice. And if we are to have justice, which is given to each and everyone what is his or her due, we must speak the truth. And for us to speak the truth, we must have people who stand by their conscience, who follow the dictates of their correct conscience and make sure they do things that are in accordance with the will of God. Things that you see the human person in every action you carry out. The dignity of the human person. And if we see that, and out of genuine love, out of genuine concern, and we carry out these activities, our society is going to be a different society. And all of us, as I say, as individuals, all of us as institutions, we must play our role, we must play our part to make sure that this becomes a reality.
Now, before his departure through the Yaoundé Simale International Airport, the Pope made a heartfelt appeal or plea for peace in Cameroon, and he said that in the crisis-stricken regions, in particular, he called for silencing of the weapons and urging all to be living letters of the gospel. Help us to understand this, Your Lordship. He urged all to be living letters of the gospel through charity and service.
Yes, being living letters of the gospel, in other words, is doing what the gospel commands us to do. St. James reminds us in his letter that we should not just be listeners of the word of God, but we should be doers of what the word commands us. And that is very important. We have said weapons, fighting will never resolve a problem. We have said dialogue, living together, listening to each other can help resolve problems. And one of the aspects, as far as this crisis is concerned, that the church has played a very important role is prayers. Because if you look at the situation in the northwest and the southwest region today, you compare it some years back, even though the crisis has not come to an end, but a lot of things have happened. It has not happened without the shedding of human blood. Priests have been killed, seminarians have been killed, Christians have been killed, other innocent people have been killed, and all the rest. But what is important is that let us allow ourselves to be guided by the Word of God. The Bible is the Word of God. And the Word of God tells us how to live. And that Word of God summarizes everything in our lives as love of God and love of neighbor. If I love God, if I love my neighbor, I will not take what belongs to him. I will not practice injustice towards him. I will always speak the truth to him. If we do not put the gospel into practice, then it will be difficult for us to have peace. And that is why the Holy Father is talking about the Gospels, the Bible. We have to continue to read the Bible. We have to continue to put the Bible into practice and make sure that the words of God that we listen or that is being read and explained to us, that we put it into practice in our concrete everyday lives. If we live out the demands of the gospel, summarized in the love of God and love of neighbor, Jesus himself told us in John chapter 13 verse 34, I give you a new commandment, love one another just as I have loved you. You can love and do what you like, because when you love, you can only carry out good acts that will benefit every other person, acts that will be able to bring peace everywhere, acts that will be able to make people live in unity and communion and harmony. But when there is no love, it becomes difficult.
And love is a virtue that cuts across religious boundaries.
Yes.
In Islam, African traditional religion, there is love. So love cuts across the board. Yes. Now, before we wrap up, Your Lordship, I want to have your take on the school of thought suggesting that the Pope was not very straightforward, very direct in his messages in Cameroon, in the way he was in his response to his president, Donald Trump, when he said that he's not afraid of him, he's not afraid of his government, he's not afraid of spreading the message of the gospel. And he was very direct in another context, of course. But some have seen something that they seem to qualify as double standard. He was direct when talking to Donald Trump, responding to Donald Trump. But in Cameroon, there was no like clear-cut and direct message to the President of the Republic, to the authorities.
Well, I would not have that same opinion because the two situations are not the same. What he said about Donald Trump was a reaction.
Responding to an
attack. And not an attack like a warlike situation, but something was said by Donald Trump.
A verbal attack.
Yes, he said, when you are speaking the truth, you're not afraid of anybody. Yes, back in Cameroon, of course, he didn't address the president directly, but all what the Pope said had implications for everyone. And everybody got the message. And I think there was no situation that came up that he should have been going to persons and individuals and saying this. But he gave a message that was meant for each individual. And that is why we have to always read the message of the Holy Father within the proper context in which it was given. And the Holy Father will not come to Cameroon for an apostolic visit and he starts by, attacking the authorities, attacking the head of state, attacking this church leader or that church leader or that, But the Pope came with a message, and the summary of the message that he gave to Cameroonians, I think those who had ears, they heard it. And it's meant for each individual now for us to interiorize the message and say, what can I do? The Holy Father talked about corruption. Am I corrupt? He talked about embezzlement. Am I an embezzler? He talked about fighting and keeping arms and looking for peace. Am I one of those who encourage fighting and taking away human life and destruction of properties and all the rest? So, the message that he gave was a message that was addressed to each and every one of us without calling names, but speaking to every one of us. And that is why we must make that message to be our own and see how we can work in order to see how we can have lasting peace in our nation. And one of the things that I love when the Pope was speaking is this aspect of hope, that we should not be discouraged. With all the challenges that we go through in life, with all the challenges we have been going through in the Northwest and the Southwest region, the temptation is to say nothing can be done. We fold our arms and we sit. And no, we should not be discouraged. Hope is one of the theological virtues. We must always be hopeful that God, in His infinite goodness and love for us, in spite of the challenges we go through, He never abandons His people. And He will continue to journey with us. And I believe that with our prayers, in His own time and in His own way, He's going to get us out of this situation that we find ourselves in.
Right. The Pope's message to Donald Trump was a response to an attack. As I said earlier, it is very clear the context was an attack because Donald Trump criticized him for being against the war in Iran. The
war in Iran, yeah.
And he also said that his messages in Cameroon were prepared well ahead of time. They were not responses to anybody. He was not responding to anybody, not even to the head of state.
Yes.
But the message were prepared well ahead of time. All right. Thank you so much, Your Lordship, for your time, the insights and the wisdom you've shared with us today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure always to have this opportunity to be with you.
It's always a pleasure listening to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today's edition of The Insight. God bless Cameroon. God bless Africa. Goodbye.